Yeah, this is a great crowd. Let me tell you, for President of the States, I give speeches to much smaller crowds than this. So I'm thrilled to be here tonight. And I love Colorado, and I'm ready to make Colorado free again. I might have some answers to some of your problems. Some of the answers that I might offer you might frighten you tonight. It might sound like some of the ideas that you hear coming from some of the other orders out there. But what I think I have for you tonight is a path forward that might be able to take us from where we are today back in the direction of what we've had during the Ron Paul years, the unity, the solidarity, the love that James was just talking about, that we are sorely lacking today. Welcome to the struggle for civilization. I'm genuinely honored to be here, and I'm actually surprised that you guys invited me. Yeah. For anybody who knows anything about my history, in 2016, when I ran for president of the United States, the Colorado Libertarian Party disinvited me from the presidential debate. Said, "Do not, we don't, you are not welcome here, Austin. You cannot come here because of the things that you have said about the non-aggression principle, et cetera, et cetera." And I said, "Oh, I'm coming. I'm coming." Drove halfway across the country, and the fact that the Libertarian Party of Colorado had, at that point, a different group of people, it disinvited me. It's the biggest fundraiser I think we had. And it just goes to show how you can take a negative and turn it into a positive. But the story that I remember the most is that I went up there and was getting ready to get up on stage because I was going up there anyway, nap violation completely. And the guy walked up to hand me a microphone. He puts his hand on my shoulder. He says, "You know what, Austin? You're a piece of shit." And we are still friends to this day. And I'll tell you that I was actually really surprised that he had the guts to get in my face and tell me how I feel about me. I got a lot of people who say a lot of things about me online, but there are very few people who have the guts to get in my face and tell me exactly what I thought about me. And you know what's surprising about that is that method of confrontation actually created a bond between us that still exists to this day. And I actually have lots of fond feelings even about the people who are not here tonight. I know that there's some people who are protesting and deciding not to come, and I find that very sad because I think we should engage with ideas, even ideas that are scary, or ideas that frighten us, in order for us to learn. But that night taught me something about what it means to be a libertarian, because we are the misfits who show up when we're told not to. We're the ones who still believe that the liberal values of the West, individual rights, free speech, self ownership, are worth defending even when the culture around us has completely forgotten about why we are here in the first place. But here's the problem: civilization is not a birthright, it's a daily fight against both the tyrannical left and now a populist right that's forgotten everything except the lust for power. So, this speech tonight is about that fight and about one that might actually help us to win it. And that trick is power. I know, I know. When I said that, some of you are breaking out in hives right now. You're hearing that word and you're like, "Oh God, no!" Right? We're not here to worship power. We're here to learn how to wield power without losing our souls. We need to be principled with power and not powerless out of principle. Thank you. Thank you. You're all very attractive. And so when I finish here tonight, I'm going to invite you to something new. A call I'm making for what I'm calling libertarian nationalism. And I don't expect everyone to agree. I just ask that if what I say tonight resonates, that you reach out to me, that you fill out the email form that I have for you at the website, and just bookmark it, think about it, challenge it, ask questions, because this isn't about me. It's about whether or not liberty has the courage to fight for civilization. If you want to win, stop pretending you're above power. So, how? No, we're above now. We're above this concept, right? This is the whisper I hear in libertarian circles every time we get close to the flame. Right? The very flame that lights the torch that we raise above our heads and our banners and our logos and our standards. The idea that touching power taints you, that seeking power corrupts you, that taking power makes you one of them. That is the mindset of why we lose. And let me be clear, I'm not telling you that you become tyrants. I'm here to tell you that pretending that you're above power is how you surrender power to people who hate your guts. There was a Roman by the name of Cicero. He was a brilliant, a defender of liberty, excellent quotes, righteous to the bone. The guy made constitutionalism sound sexy in Latin. And guess what? They cut off his head and they nailed his hands to the Senate door because Cicero thought that his ideas could win without strategy. He thought that virtue alone could protect the Roman Republic. It didn't. He didn't just lose the argument, he lost the Republic because someone else, Octavian, Emperor Augustus, understood that the ideas only move the world when they're paired with power. Not just poetry, not just pamphlets, power. What would Spain be without George Washington's flintlock? Now, fast forward. Remember Ron Paul? Of course. How many of us are here because of Ron Paul? Raise your hands. Give it up for Ron Paul. What's he do? A prophet, a hero, a man who lived to master so many of us, of whom, if not for him, I would not be here today. But when it came time for us to wield power, many conventions that I watched across the nation, when it came time for us to fight, when it came time for us to put low those who stood against us, we flinched. And we said, we're not here to win, we're here to educate. And let me ask you something. Does the IRS look educated to you? No? Do they look like they've been enlightened by the non-aggression principle? No. They're laughing at us while they take our paychecks. Ideas are noble, but ideas without action are powerless. They're just hobbies. Now, power itself, it's not violence. Power is not evil. Power is the ability to make ideas real. If we won't use it, someone else will. Here's the real kicker. If we don't take power, we won't protect freedom. If we don't take power, we will abolish departments. If we don't take power, all we are is just the conscience of a dying empire. The left figured this out long ago. The right learned it the hard way. We're the last ones at the party acting like we're too cool to dance. So if we want to save Western civilization, we have to stop virtue signaling about how apolitical we are and start building the kind of power that doesn't need permission to defend liberty. Not dirty because we want to win. You're dangerous for thinking that losing makes you clean. Sun Tzu said that the supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting, but you still need a sword. Jesus said, if you do not have a sword, sell your cloak and buy one. This point is not rhetorical. This is a cultural exorcism of the libertarian movement as it stands today. It tackles the fatal delusion that has kept liberty-minded people outside the halls of power for decades. Now, Western civilization is not going to be led by those who are afraid to lead. If you don't obey our allies to power, we forfeit the right to fight before it begins. The left didn't win the culture war with better arguments. They won it by taking power without shame. Number one is about overcoming the moral paralysis that keeps good people like yourselves out of positions where you can do actual good. So yes, step one, saving Western civilization. Liberty must shed false humility. Step into the ring and get dirty. Second two, your purity spiral is a hamster wheel. It's time to get off. Libertarians have many natural talents. We could quote Basquiat like it's Tupac, no problem, right? We can spot a Fed. I can spot a Fed at 200 yards. I don't know about some of you guys. And we can argue about monetary policy until the sun explodes. But let's be honest, our true superpower is eating our own. We are the only movement that could lose a fight, not to the state, to a debate over commas in the bylaws. You've seen it, you've lived it. Someone stands up and says, hey, I want to vote for city council and give us zoning laws. Somebody else shouts, supported failed tax reform in 2013 with back. But this is the purity spiral of death. It's where liberty goes to die, not under tyranny, but under snarky Facebook threads. And step back. Does anybody remember the French Revolution? The Jacobins killed the Girondins, not for not being revolutionary. Then Robespierre, Mr. Liberty or Death, right, lost his head too, guillotined by his own faction. Jacques Maillet d'Aucun said that revolutions devour their own children. Have we not done this? Since our Ron Paul revolution began in 2008, have we not just had a series of continuing circular firing squads for each other, destroyed one another? We, all of us. Now we got Hoppians versus agorists, pragmatists versus Mises caucus, voluntarists versus minarchists, red libertarians, paleo libertarians, crypto pagan, techno liberty bros. We've got more sects than Scientology. Everybody's got a podcast. Welcome to the Anarcho-Nudist Gardening Hour, brought to you by Monero. People who live in glass houses. The result, though, is that we keep splintering into irrelevance, because nobody can pass the next guy's purity test, right? And the only thing that abundance is infighting. But compare that to the other side. In the radical left, when they see a win on the board, like Zoran Mamdani, they take it, even if it's messy. Gary Nadler knows that Zoran Mamdani wants to purge every Jew from New York City next to him because he's got a D next to his name. It's insane, but it's how they've managed to control us. They don't care if the Green Party friend said something heteronormative in 2006. They get in line, they see the levers, and then they'll punish you because you misgendered a frog. You put the chemicals in the water that turn the freaking frog scared. And that's your fault and you're misgendering it. When the Mises caucus took over the Libertarian Party, they wanted to reshape it, and that was good. And I saw a positive step forward. They did it through internal elections, but the moment they got waiting for purchase began. New purity tests, new rules, new enemies. We didn't build a war machine, we built a shrinking club with a sign outside that said no normies allowed. The future of liberty is not going to be won by the guy who passes the litmus test. It's going to be won by the person willing to get off of the hamster wheel and pick up a hammer. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't have standards. We absolutely should have standards. I'm saying just maybe don't burn some of the steak over whether or not they put ketchup on a hot dog or whether they voted for Gary Johnson instead of John McAfee at the 2016 convention. Right? Don't fight the real enemy, the one with drones, the one with printing presses, the one with IRS agents and tactical gear, not the guy who disagrees with you on whether a roads referendum violates the map. Because if we don't stop cannibalizing our allies, we're just feeding ourselves, or even worse, our next generation of libertarians to the machines that we build right now, whose sole purpose is to destroy the next generation. We're killing ourselves. We have to shed the fear of power. We have to retain that power and not turn our movement into an ideological suicide. History is full of movements that had truth on their side, but died in a ditch because they couldn't stop bickering. Libertarians risk becoming a fractured priesthood rather than a fighting force. We are a priestly class. We are a class of priests. We have high priests, we have popes, we have potentates, but we are just a warrior class. And what I'm inviting you now tonight is for libertarians to build a warrior class for our ideas. Segment 3, take the institutions, or the institutions will take you. I'm going to tell you a secret about the people who are running the world right now. They didn't get there because they were smarter. God knows many of these politicians are deeply stupid. Dunning-Kruger is a thing. The problem, of course, is that all of the smart people are thinking about what they should do, while all the others are like, I guess I'll just run for office. And then they win, and then they lord over us, and they were the D students in class, and you could see why things are falling apart, because they didn't have the fear, they didn't have the shame that we did because we thought about things too much. We, the Liberty Movement, thought we were too good. We said, burn it down. After Ron Paul's movement, we all became anarcho-capitalists and said, you don't vote, that just encourages them. The system is rigged. But what happens when you abandon the field? Somebody else plays the game, and they don't play fair. This is the third way that libertarians can save Western civilization, and it might be the hardest for you to swallow. You have to take the institutions, or the institutions will take you. Now, if you've ever read any Antonio Gramsci, he was an Italian Marxist, and he spent years in Benito Mussolini's prisons. But he had one big idea, and his big idea is that the revolution is not in the streets, it's in the school, it's in the churches, it's in the culture. Win those, and you win the world. This is the long march through the institutions. The left listened to Antonio Gramsci. They marched through every institution, academia, newsrooms, the entertainment industry, HR departments, publishing houses, scientific journals, and yes, even the military. Every major concentration of Nazis in this country is behind federal bars in prison. Every major Leninist Marxist is in academia or the press. They didn't say the left when they got there, when the left took over those institutions, they didn't say, let's make room for competing ideas. They talked about diversity, equity, and inclusion. Thomas Sowell likes to ask, how many conservatives are in your poli-sci departments? Not many. How many libertarians? Probably none. The people who believed in Western values, us, the people who created civilization the world's ever known, the cowboys, us, we have been pushed out of the institutions that we built, and we now. Here's a modern example. Elon Musk, he turned it around. He flipped the script. Elon Musk didn't start a new social media platform. What did he do? He didn't build a app called freespeech.io. He bought the cathedral, and then he ripped out the pulpit. Elon Musk in 2022 tweeted, "The bird is free." And what is it, folks? They lost their mind. They went insane. Because it's like when you lift up a rock and you shine a light on it, right? Or you show a vampire the sun. It's the secret. It's their long march through the institution. We can be the rock that stands in the way and says, no more. For just a moment, liberty had a platform, right? A weapon, a platform. Imagine if libertarians ran an entire school district, a sheriff's department, a chamber of commerce, a district attorney's office. Right? What do you think George Soros is spending his money buying up? District attorney's offices. Yeah, he's buying up the prosecutor's offices. Right? Imagine if we just had with that thing in that area. Imagine a free state project in more than just New Hampshire. Right? You don't have to start by taking over Washington, D.C. That's the empire. That's Mordor. Right? You take the Shire. You take Rohan. You take Gondor. Start where you are. Build what they can ignore. If you don't like the culture, become the culture. If you don't like the institution, become the institution. I understand. I get it. I know a lot of people that don't want to become a bureaucrat. You didn't dream of being a state rep or a school board trustee. But guess what? They did. They did. They dreamed of that. That was their dream. Was that one day you let kids at school who just had to, they always had to be, telling all the teachers the snitches, always watching what you were doing. They dreamed that one day they would have power over us. And now they do. What are we going to do about it? If you want liberty to survive, we don't just need activists, we need architects. We need to go from being the pamphlet people to the policy people, from being the hecklers to being the high priests of our own institutions. Because if we don't take them, they'll keep taking us. And if we're not even going to do just this one thing, even here today. Number 4, build power where the left never looks locally. So many battles for liberty on the local level. Nobody cares because they don't live there and it doesn't affect them, but it does affect me and the people who live in my community. If I told you there was a place in America where you could pass your own laws, defy federal overreach, nullify gun control, and indoctrinate children libertarianism, Would you believe me? Would you believe me if I told you that the left will barely notice it's even happening? This is how the Republican Party has started to become a majority party. There's a reason why there's an ocean of red in with little tiny islands of blue. This is what the Republican Party has done. This is what you would have to do. This is local power. This is the local politics, the dark alley of power. Nobody's watching it, but this is where everything happens. This is how you save Western civilization, not by winning CNN, not by trending on X, but by owning your zip code. Let's take you back in time. This is the American Revolution. We didn't start with a continental army. We didn't have a national referendum. We started with committees of correspondence, tiny local networks in Boston, Virginia, the Carolinas, people meeting in taverns, sharing letters, just like what we're doing here right now tonight. And we organized a resistance, and then one by one, they turned towns into cells, and cells into colonies, and colonies into a nation. It does not take a majority to prevail, but rather an irate, tireless minority, keen on setting brush fires of freedom in the minds of men. And let me show you how it plays out today. Have you ever heard of Mom for Liberty? Yeah. They didn't need Congress, did they? They didn't need to go get a bill passed right away. They didn't need CNN. They took school boards, dozens of them. They showed up. They ran for the boring seats that nobody cares about, and then they split the curriculum. Oh my God! I've seen so many videos of angry leftist parent moms who had to deal with the curriculum changing to the fact that it wasn't all about George Washington had slaves, but it was about the nation that he built and the legacy of liberty that he left for our country. Who decides what your kids learn in school? Whose job is that? Who decides how your property taxes are spent? Who determines your COVID lockdown policy? Who enforces red flag laws or refuses to enforce them? Not the president, it's not the Supreme Court, it's your sheriff. Your sheriff and your school board and your city manager, these are the last places in America where one person with a spine can still make a revolution. The Free State Project in New Hampshire, Libertarians moved in, took over a state, and now constitutional carry is the law. Federal gun laws are nullified. Missouri did that as well. We had to go to a federal court for that. Patent pending, school choice is thriving. They've blocked vaccine mandates, lockdown, income taxes, you name it. If you wanted to live in COVID, if you wanted to live during COVID tyranny, you wanted to be in New Hampshire, or you wanted to be in Missouri. I don't think you did here in Colorado. Probably wasn't pretty. The Democrats have been stomping liberty in the state out for the last 20 years. Imagine if any one of you in this room ran for something in one city council, school board, fire board. Some of these things, guys, you will win if you just show up. Sometimes some of the things that I show up for, some of my local meetings, they appoint me, right? And I don't even want the job. And they're like, that's your job because you showed up and showed competence. Every tyrannical regime depends on local compliance. And every revolution begins when local resistance says no. The state wants you distracted. They want you ranting on social media. They want you to take Trump's bait. And he's going after Thomas Massey. So we're going to attack Donald Trump and we're going to create all this chaos and rancor. But what's happening while we're being distracted? What's happening when we're fighting with each other? What's going on? Is there a meeting down the street? Is there a city council meeting down the street where these numbers of these people might have tipped the balance for liberty that would have actually changed an outcome somewhere? Take your town, then take the next one. And when the empire comes knocking, we'll show them a map of 1,000 free states and not one single entry point. Let's give it up for the Free State Project in New Hampshire. They've won it. Number 5, stop being allergic to charisma. Let me tell you a true story. Back in 2016, not long after the Libertarian presidential race wrapped up, I came back to Colorado. There was an event. And I had just given a speech. And it was kind of, it was energetic, it was sharp, it was very slick. Right? And afterwards, a woman stood up and she goes, you remind me of a young Bill Clinton. I get it. All right. Bill Clinton was a lot of things. All right. But let's be honest about Bill Clinton, right? The man could charm a cat off of a tuna boat. Okay. Robin O'Brien, if anyone knows her, met Bill Clinton, told me an incredible story about how she just was charmed to death by this man. Yeah. But she didn't compare me to Bill Clinton as a compliment. She meant like I just gotten off the Lolita Express from a vacation at Epstein's house. In this movement, charisma is suspicious. If you smile too much, you're a grifter. If you dress too well, you're a fed. If you actually move a crowd, well, now you're a narcissist with authoritarian tendencies. If libertarians have a pathological distrust of charisma, it's like an unethical life path. This allergy is killing us. If you can have the best ideas in the world, but if you deliver them like a guy reading an IRS code in a bunker, you're not going to save Western civilization. You're just going to LARP in your own echo chamber. Alexander was a military genius, but what made men follow him into Persia wasn't just strategy, it was his magnetic personality. He led from the front, he wept with his men, he gave fiery speeches, he crowned himself as the new Achilles. There is nothing impossible to him who will try, he said. And he built an empire on personality as much as swordplay. And now, thousands of years later, we still speak his name. Fast forward today, look at Javier Milei, the chainsaw wielding, meme blasting president of Argentina. He didn't whisper his way to power. He screamed, he danced, he dropped truth bombs on national TV. He didn't get these banned, but he did up in the time. He did. He was in a band growing up. But he won because he made liberty entertaining. You cannot inspire people with spreadsheets. You will not beat the cathedral with charts and citations and superior argumentations. If the audience is asleep, the sermon doesn't matter. We are in a culture war. Javier Milei stated that several times. In the culture, you will win the politics. We need leaders who look like they speak what they're saying, who can speak both the mind and the gut, who can walk into a room, turn heads, not because they're loud, because they're alive. When you see Javier Milei, you see a man who is living life to the fullest. He represents the best of what is Argentina. Who represents the best of what we believe? Who is truly living the principles of liberty every day, in every fiber of their being? Ron Paul even had a twinkle in his eyes. He had a charisma. Ron has in spades. I'm laughing every day. Even if I disagree with him or think he's insane, I'm excited by his humor. Charisma is not tyranny. Charisma is a tool. It is a vehicle for your values. If you can't sell liberty with a smile and a swagger, you're going to leave power on the table for people who have neither virtue nor restraint, but can light up a crowd like a match to gasoline. We need a generation of liberty warriors who know how to lead in a debate or the stage. So the woman in 2016 who said I reminded her of a young Bill Clinton, I don't know if you're here tonight, but thank you. Because maybe what this movement needs is a little less suspicion and a little more seduction. Number 6, mock the regime. Yes. Yes, mock them, but learn its roots. Let's be real. Nobody mocks the regime like libertarians. We had Fauci in a clown suit with honking before it was cool. We had memes about the ATF pet killing division before the normies even knew what Ruby was. We were making about Waco while Republicans were still cheering the tank. But I'm here to tell you something that most of us don't want to hear. Mockery without mastery is masturbation. It is. What's accomplished? Nothing. Making yourself feel better. It feels good. It looks like you're doing something, but the regime still wins. You cannot solely meme your way out of tyranny. You have to dismantle it piece by piece. And to do that, you have to learn the rules. That is what they fear the most. They do not want, the enemies of liberty do not want you to know how things work. They want you to be ignorant. They want you to be in the dark. In the 5th century BC, the Greek world was split between two titans, Athens and Sparta. The flashy democratic superpower, and Sparta, the hard-edged military state. Sparta wasn't able to win against Athens with brute force, so they sent Lysander, a quiet, cunning general who didn't just train warriors, he trained strategists. Rather, excuse me. But he didn't just mock them from afar. He studied Athens. He figured out how they fed their people, how they paid their fleet, and how they kept their empire loyal. And then he went to Persia, which was the enemy of all of Greece, and convinced them to fund the Spartan navy. The Spartans outsourced to Persians to beat the Athenians at sea. And then when he had the power, he didn't attack the city, he cut off their grain supply. He fought without fighting. He starved them. And then when they begged for peace, he walked in without a fight, a bloodless coup, tore down their wall, and installed his own government. He who knows the terrain owns the battlefield. Lysander didn't just win a war, he ended an empire. And he did it by mastering the enemy's system better than they understood it themselves. Now, fast forward, we love to mock bureaucrats, but how many of us actually understand how regulation is created? How many of us know how to file a FOIA request that gets resolved? When COVID-19 tyranny was happening in my hometown, we had people calling the local health department, calling on their neighbors, snitching on their neighbors. What they didn't know was that all of any information that's given to a public health agency in Missouri is able to be FOIA'd. So guess what? We FOIA'd. We found the snitch list. I got on the radio. I started listing names, and all of a sudden, switchboard lights up. He's Austin, please. I just don't read. Listen, don't read my name out loud. Please don't. The snitch got snitched. The people who would have turned to your neighbors if Stalin was in charge got snitched because I learned the rules. When I first tried to FOIA everybody who was snitching on their neighbors for the COVID regulations, they were stonewalled. It wasn't like you just go down to the government and they give you the papers on all the people who were snitching on their neighbors. You got to fight for it. You got to understand how do you get them. But they squealed. Oh God, it's one of the greatest days of my life. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it was. It was an accomplishment. It was a local victory. I know that you guys were like, oh, wow, Austin really helped my local town. But I can't tell you how many people in my community were just like, go often. I thought the government had learned their tricks, and then I turned it against them. James O'Keefe, Project Veritas. He didn't just scream on the internet. He infiltrated. He read HR manuals. He learned whistleblower laws. He filmed legally and surgically used the regime's rules to blow up their own credibility. And if you are an Indian in his 40s, suddenly a smoking hot blonde woman wants to go on a date with you and ask you a lot of questions about your government job, that's not a woman. That's James O'Keefe in trend. Watch out. If you want to dismantle the Department of Education, learn Title I funding. If you want to stop unconstitutional ATF enforcement, know your sheriff's interposition laws and his powers under your state constitution. What can your sheriff in your community do to stop the enforcement of red flag laws in your county? This isn't glamorous. It's not sexy like quoting Rothbard on the podcast or memeing Janet Yellen as Ursula from The Little Mermaid. But this is how civilizations are saved. Through active resistance, not just rebellious optics. The regime expects us to be ignorant. They want us shouting about liberty and wearing tricorn hats while they quietly add 300 federal pages to the Federal Register. But what if time we had a Lysander? What if we were the experts? What if every joke came with a profile, lawsuit, or a bill? That's power, weaponized by knowledge. So yes, be them, mock the regime, but behind the punchline, plain. Ridicule is the most potent weapon of all, Saul Alinsky. You don't need mass approval. You need strategic foothold. This is one of the biggest myths in politics. And people who control power, they say this to us all the time. I can't tell you how many people I've seen demoralized from the battle ahead because they believe this lie. But here it is. You do not need 51% to win. You don't need mass approval. But all you need, leverage. Somebody owes you something. You need just a little foothold, your foot in the door. History is not made by majorities. It's made by a stubborn few who act before everyone else wakes up. In 1776, the American Revolution was not an actual consensus. It wasn't supported by the majority. It was a calculated insurgency led by a minority. Historian Robert Calhoun estimates that only 15 to 20% of the colonists actively supported independence. Another 20% were loyal to the crown. The lowest end of the estimates that I have read, 3% of the colonists were patriots. The great majority of the rest didn't care. Or another 3% worked against us. And then we beat them and we sent them back to Canada. Yeah, yeah. That's how Canada became fake and gay. Liberty wasn't born by public opinion. It was born by the ones who showed up. They didn't wait for polling data. They met in taverns. They printed pamphlets. They trained in fields. They were hunted, imprisoned, shot, hanged, and they fought in. And this is a personal story for me. I recently joined a group in my community called the Sons of the American Revolution. I've able to trace my ancestors, my bloodline back to this gentleman by the name of Isaac Wade. My name is Austin Wade Petersen, and he served in the 16th Virginia Regiment. And he didn't talk about liberty. He just picked up his musket and went and fought for it. He didn't wait for 51% support. He stood for freedom when standing up could get you killed. But this is not just an American story. We're going to go back further for a moment to the Roman Empire. The early church was not a supermajority. It wasn't even legal. For 300 years, Christianity was a persecuted, outlawed sect. Its followers met in catacombs, wrote letters in exile, and were thrown to lions for refusing to bow to Caesar. The fish, the Jesus fish, it is said, is a communication symbol between ancient Christians. So one person would draw one half of the fish on one side, and then the other person, if they were a Christian, would draw the other of the fish in order to communicate. And yet they changed the world. And Christianity, to a large extent, dominates the world today. Not through violence, not just through popularity, through conviction, unshakable courage. They took footholds in communities, trade guilds, and homes. And when the Romans fell, the Christian church remained. And one last story, this is a story from my own personal past. I trained in Shotokan karate, and this is a tradition that traces its roots back to Okinawa. This is back when the practice of martial arts was banned by the Japanese rulers. Uncle Itosu, he was a teacher, he's a kind of a revolutionary in his own right. He taught karate in secret and in the graveyards at night. And he passed it to a quiet, disciplined student by the name of Ichin Funakoshi-san. And Funakoshi didn't have a government mandate. He had no crown, but through sheer persistence and belief and training in secret, in private, with small salons of other men who wanted to learn this martial art, he brought karate to mainland Japan, eventually the world, despite billions. Started in secret, started with a small minority, now one of the most widely practiced martial arts in the world. Where would karate be without Ichin Funakoshi? Because of one man's will and the hidden practice of a persecuted few, a suppressed tradition became an international force of self-mastery, dignity, and discipline. It's patterned everywhere. You can see it in all things. The founders didn't wait for permission. The early church didn't wait. The Okinawa master didn't wait. So what are we waiting for? You don't need a nation. You need a foothold. You need leverage. sheriff's office, a school board, a podcast, a city council seat, a dojo, a home. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Margaret Mead. They're usually the only ones who ever do. Revolutions aren't built by consensus. They're built by the obsessed few who never stop showing up. And thank you for all of you tonight for showing up. Are the beginning of the next seeds of our revolution. Heading towards the end of this speech tonight, number 8, cultivate a reputation for excellence, not just rebellion. Let's be honest with you. We are famous for being right about everything, but we're not famous for being reliable. We're great at identifying tyranny. We're fantastic at pointing out hypocrisy. We're world class at sarcasm. Means we've got the best. Philosophical rigor, nobody beats us. But ask the average person if they would trust us to run a town, a school board, a court. Most of them probably would hesitate at that. Because too often, the brand of liberty isn't associated with excellence. It's associated with rebellion for rebellion's sake. That has to change. Because if we want to save Western civilization, we can't just oppose the regime. We have got to outperform it. We have to be better than that in every sense of the word. This is a story some of you might have heard in Sunday school. There's a young man in Babylon named Daniel. He's captured, enslaved, he's forced into a foreign system. He doesn't riot, he doesn't overthrow the king, he just keeps showing up. And he does his job better than anyone else. Eventually, he's appointed to high office. Because even when he was exiled, he was excellent, honest, wise, diligent, unshakably principled, yet competent enough to run a kingdom. Think about it. The reason why Ron Paul won this election. It wasn't just because he bridged everybody in his district. He certainly did that. But it was because they trusted him. They believed it. He was competent. If you want liberty to win, you have to be the most prepared person in the room. You have to show up early. You have to know the budget better than the treasurer. You have to write the resolution before anyone else sees the problem. This helps. Many of us are on the spectrum. Use our power for good, not for evil. Congressman Thomas Massey, engineer, MIT grad, homesteader, votes no on constitutional bills, then explains exactly why. He doesn't scream, he's not posing, he's not doing performative politics. He builds trust because he's right and he's ready. Massey is a living rebuke to the idea that liberty lovers like ourselves are unserious. And whether you or not you agree with every vote that he casts, you can't deny this. When he speaks, even his enemies listen. He gets under Donald Trump's skin. They know he's done his homework. Too many libertarians think that being chaotic is the goal, but chaos is only ever the beginning of a new order. I like to think of libertarians as chaotic good. The chaos comes first, the order comes after. Ludwig von Mises' book, Planned Chaos, Friedrich Hayek's Spontaneous Order. The chaos comes first, then the order. Excellence. This is the true revolution. Responsibility. That is the sharpest rebellion. Mastery. This is the most radical act of mediocrity and chaotic slop. Don't just be the loudest guy in the room. Be the one who knows how to run them. And that is how we're going to win back our cities. That is how we'll raise up new leaders. That is how we'll resist being dismissed as just internet philosophers and start being feared as strategic professionals. If you want to save Western civilization, be so excellent that they can't ignore you. Be so competent that they can't replace you. We need them to need us. The American people need to look at us as indispensable. Where would the United States be without the libertarian movement? They have forgotten that we built this house. We have squandered the legacy. It's time to remind them again. The only way is through excellence. Let them call you rebels. The day will come when they call you leaders. Thank you. Number 9, build parallel systems. Create, don't complain. When the machine breaks down, don't stand in the wreckage and tweet about it. Build a new machine. Every civilization that survived collapse, did it by creating a parallel system while the old order rotted. After Rome fell, monks in cold stone monasteries copied the manuscripts that the barbarians had burned. They didn't ask permission, they just preserved the light. That is what we must do now. When the banking system finally inflates itself to death, when academia becomes an indoctrination camp, when the media becomes state propaganda, don't waste your breath begging for reform. If there is somebody out there that you think is doing a horrible job at something, if you don't like Tucker Carlson's podcast, be the next Tucker Carlson. If there's somebody that you disagree with, outshine them. Do what they do. Do it better. Bitcoin began as a white paper. Now it's a whole realm of alternate monetary systems, old school networks, independent medical cooperatives, encrypted journalism, like Julian Assange, parallel supply chains. All of these are the monasteries of the modern age, and we are a priestly class. Why then can we not create our own churches and our own institutions? Elon Musk's Starlink kept Ukrainians online when governments tried to flip the switch and turn them off. That was a infrastructure that he's built. That's liberty, power source. So start small, form a defense co-op, launch a credit union that won't cancel customers because they believe in abolishing the Federal Reserve. Like create media channels that are immune to censorship. Rumble created a whole parallel system and an alternative to YouTube. When Parler came on the scene and was using Amazon's infrastructure to build up their house, what happened to Parler? Destroyed. So what has Rumble done? They built their own Amazon Web Services. They built their own house. They built their house up on the rock. Build up your house on the rock. When the empire demands obedience, let it find an empty chair. Don't ask tire for permission. Build technology that makes them irrelevant. Guys, I'm not saying I break the law a lot, but Ayn Rand had a famous quote. She said it's better to ask for forgiveness than permission. The question isn't who will let me, who will stop. Thank you. Yes. I know. Correct. If you ask somebody, if you've got a great idea and you want to go to your boss and you want to ask them if you're going to do that idea, what's the answer going to be? No. Don't ask permission. Ask for forgiveness. This is the final piece of the puzzle. Even if you rebuild every system, you still have to give people a reason to love what you have built. We've fixed our policy. Everything is starting to move in the right direction. We've built up our alternative systems. We are excellent at what we do. We have mastery. We have self-control. We have discipline. We're ready to lead. But we've lost one thing. We've lost our poetry. You cannot defend a civilization if no one believes that it's beautiful. Western civilization was not born from spreadsheets. It was born from cathedrals and symphonies, operas, from Aristotle's logic, Michelangelo's hands as he put together the Statue of David. Today, our culture scrolls in silence. It's only lit by blue light and irony. If liberty is to live, we must make it sacred again. Freedom without meaning becomes mindless consumerism. Meaning without freedom becomes tyranny. The West is at its best when it marries both sin and reverence, technology and transcendence. We need a new aesthetic of liberty. Art that glorifies courage, architecture that honors order and beauty, stories that make self-ownership feel heroic again. A civilization that stops apologizing for its greatness and starts creating new greatness to justify its pride in itself. Javier Milei does this instinctively. He quotes Hayek in one breath, and then he sings rock anthems in his next breath. Yeah. He made liberty thrilling again. And this is what the revival looks like. What we're seeing in Argentina, the beautiful art and music and culture of the Libertad Avanza Party, the art that has come out from Javier Milei's movement is beautiful and inspiring. If the left can make tyranny glamorous, we can make freedom gorgeous. We're not just defenders of the old, we become architects of the next world, the world that is coming, only if we start building that. Light portraits, not merely policies. And this brings me to my invitation. If you want to skip to the next slide, this is a call to a libertarian nationalist movement. And both of these words offend certain people for different reasons. Remember, nation doesn't necessarily mean a state. A nation is the people in this geographic area. This is this isn't the end of my speech. This is the beginning of what I hope will be a correspondence with many of you on a very personal level. You've heard me talk tonight about power, excellence, joy, creation, and all of this funnels back to a single mission of which I am embarking on beginning tonight. This will be the first time I will talk about these principles, and this will be the last time you hear me speak about these things. Because after this speech is over tonight, I am done. I'm done. No more. I will enact these principles. I will live these principles. I will live them to the best that I can. I won't be perfect. I'm not a god, but I will do everything that I can to live up to these principles that I've laid out here. All of this funnels into this single mission to build a libertarian nationalist movement of builders, not beggars, patriots who believe that freedom and strength are not opposites, but allies. I've written a document to chart that course. This is the Libertarian Nationalist Manifesto. This is not a platform. This is not a purity test. This is a compass. You can read that document by scanning that QR code over there on that screen. This is the direction that I think that our movement should move in order to restore the light to our nation. This is going to take you to a manifesto, and a small form is on there where you can drop your email. I want you to read this. I want you to mark the parts of this manifesto that move you. And I want you to argue with the ones that don't. That's fine. And then I want you to write to me directly, personally. I want you to keep the conversation alive, because this fight for Western civilization is not a weekend road trip or flight to Colorado. This is a lifetime project. This is the work of a lifetime, and I intend to spend my entire life on it. So when they ask you what you believe, tell them, I believe in liberty, I believe in strength, I believe in beauty, I believe that Western civilization is worth saving. It's one weird trip. Take power, use it to build, and light the way home. Thank you very much, and I'm happy to take any questions you might have tonight. Thank you. I'm very proud to be here. I'm very proud and very thankful to you all for your generosity in bringing me out here tonight. And I do hope that you will all please have a read and please correspond with us. And let's talk about what we can do to empower one another, and what I can do to help you, what you can do to help my cause. Any questions? Yes, ma'am. Oh, I have not. Please share. We will not support. I heard that. I did hear that. You sneaky mothers. You guys you're so smart. You're so smart. You keep going. Don't quit. Keep doing that. All right. You're going to get a lot of help. The sign that you're probably doing something right is that somebody's going to try and stop it. Just be sneaky about it. Okay. You do whatever you do, don't let people know what you're doing until it's too late. Get the signatures and get the dirty deal done before it sees the light of day. Right? Take liberty before they have a chance to stop it. Good for you. Keep it up. Don't ever give a bureaucrat a chance to say no. Yes, sir. Bitcoin. We have a Discord server. If you guys go to forlibernetwork.com, you'll find our merry band of miscreants. It's a really, you know what I always focus on. People always like, Austin, you're it's not as big and all that. Well, here's the thing. Always really focused on trying to build healthy, positive communities where people who have families and kids should feel welcome. Right. So I try not to lead with the prostitution thing, perhaps. Right. It's hard to talk to, parents when they got their kids there, this or that. But I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying that it's a matter of optics. But I will say that in terms of how we can correspond with one another, I want somebody to reach out to me if you have a family and you are concerned for the future of your children and you want to leave a better life for your children. And I will share with you some of the secrets of the parents, some of the things that I have learned, some of the things that I have learned that have given me power in my community. I was able, by just looking like a normal dude wearing a flannel shirt, I was granted immense authority by showing up to a full county meeting and being a normal guy. And they said, "You delegates to go to the regional and state convention to decide the future of the state platforms." And I showed up wearing a flannel shirt with my wife, and I was just like, they were like, "Oh, introduce yourself." And I'm like, "My name's Austin. Property here in this community. Pay a lot of property taxes, as we all know. And I'm a family man. Got a little daughter on the way. Just hoping to make Cole County a better place." And boom, elected, nominated, no questions. Didn't say liberty, didn't say nationalism, didn't say manifesto, didn't say Trump. You gotta watch out. Yeah. I know that like Luigi Mangione is like, maybe if I murdered somebody, people would have to read it. But not a great way to get people to read your manifesto. I'm hoping I can do so peacefully without violating that. Any other questions tonight? I'm here with you tonight for just a little short time, and then I have to go home. I hope that we can share some really meaningful moments tonight. So please don't be shy to ask me any questions you may have. Yeah, please. Yeah. Third one, second. For example, three books. Wow. We're really kind of at our wit's end, and we're trying to really take our leverage. So my question to you is, what would you recommend are best ways for us to make these balance? So depending on how your districts are arranged, your voting district, right? What's important when I was talking, I mentioned briefly like dominating the zip code, right? And then I talked about excellence in terms of like knowing more than everybody else. The most important thing that you can do is to memorize your map, right? To understand the region and the territory and and what's happening inside that district and the dynamics that are at play. Because what you'll find is you'll find that there are power centers, okay, and usually most power centers are playing off one another, and somebody, and if you get to know people on personal interpersonal level, you're going to find out their insecurities, you're going to find out what and when you find out what somebody's insecurities are, that insecurity could very well be that we don't know if we're going to be able to pay our mortgage on our, for a rent on a thing because of the local property taxes or things like that. So the more information that you can gather, it's really about big data. It really, and when I say big data, I deal with data operations that are on a national size, but oh my God, when you just have one zip code, you can rule. If you have 10 people if you can get 10 people to show up to any location, that's all you need. If you had 10 more people today, the outcome of whatever cost happened earlier, kind of gone the other way. It's 10 people, 10 solid people, right? But they have to have stakes in the community. They have to be stakeholders. They have to be people who live there, who know the area. But memorize your map, find the stakeholders in your region, filter it. Here's a little tip. ChatGPT has a new tool. It's called Agent. And if you don't know what agent is, the word 2025 next year, they're going to look back and say it's agentic search. If you are not using the agent tool of your AI software now, I know you guys are like crypto and nerd tech guys, you're missing out on a major, powerful tool. A lot of people are talking about it right now, but it's like having an employee to work for you. AI, when it first started, was we're all just searching, and it's like a Google, not anymore. Now, let's say that I get rich and build websites. Okay, what do I need to do? How do I find clients? I tell my agent, get online, find every plumber in who has the website, drag all of their contact information off of their website, find every social media platform that they exist on, be a creepy stalker, and find everything that they've said or done in the last 3 to 6 weeks. Write them a personalized email from me, introducing myself to them. Hey, by the way, Jake, I saw you caught a huge fish in the Cayman Islands last week. I love fishing too. Let's have a chat. And your agentic search can build that spreadsheet, write all of the emails, search all of their information, publicly available information, which most people are sharing everything there is about them, and then write a creepy, stalkerish email. But isn't that how people would respond? If you write someone an email like, I'd love to do your website, but what if like, I saw your Facebook post of you with a fish. You looked amazing. Got a 3 pound fish. Let's go fishing, dude. That's what your agent search will do. It is the most powerful tool that no one is talking about right now. So you use it and take it to say, find every stakeholder in this community, search by zip code, find their phone numbers, put that phone number in a spreadsheet, find their emails, write an email and to all of them. You have to watch it because it's like having like a new employee for you and it can make mistakes. It's live and it's searching them, it's doing things. You're like, oh, slow down there, hold on, right? Check it, double check it, make sure you're watching it. But it will go out there and it will do the work of 10 men for you in a short period of time. I use ChatGPT, other software exists, it's agent. Test it out. It's all that data to find information. You don't have a phone number, you don't have an email address, you don't know personally about that person. Well, the agent will find it out for you now. There's a little tip here to save Western civilization. How's that? There you go. Not just to like plug myself or anything, guys, but just so you know, my she's part of this now. But I actually do have an online course for people who are learning, who want to learn more about AI. So I have a master class for anybody who wants to learn to do what I do. I have an online course, and this is kind of what internet people do. But you could ask her and read other people who've been to the class. It's $150 and it's got all of my secrets for what I'm using to go viral and to dominate online. ForLibertyShop.com. It's the same website that QR code will take you to. If you type into the search on that website, AI for creators, you'll find that course. When I say I'm giving my secrets in that class, it's an unbelievable amount of information that I'm handing over, and mostly to libertarians because those are the only people coming to that website. Please consider it. And if you enjoy it, then share it with others. If the people who are going to succeed in the future and in the coming years are the type of people who don't need to be told what to do. If you're the type of person at your job or what have you that needs a boss and someone to tell you what to do, you are probably going to lose your job. If you are the type of person who knows what to do and knows how to ask the right questions, AI turns you into a demigod. It is I use probably 15 to 20 different platforms a day. I have one employee, also hiring if anyone's interested. Any digital natives looking for jobs right now? I am hiring, so please reach out to me with your resumes. And I think let's make liberty win. Let's do it. It can be a powerful tool for it, just like Bitcoin was. I think bigger than Bitcoin. Yeah, I think it is. And I think that if we libertarians dominate AI, just like we dominated Bitcoin, and we don't allow AI to turn into what Reddit has become, then we can win the future. Any other questions? Signed up. You signed up. I will see you on class on Thursday. Bye. Dude, coming Thursday. Yeah. Yes. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. So my recommendation to you is that you join a local charity, you start one, or that you show up to the local the Kiwanis, or if you're Catholic, the Knights of Columbus. I'm secular, so the only institution that would have me is the one, thankfully, my ancestors founded, which was the Sons of the American Revolution. But if you have an ancestor, like if you're, especially if you're a woman, if you are an ancestor that fought in the American Revolution, you could be in the Daughters. The Daughters is one of the most powerful civic institutions in the United States. But political power flows through the Daughters of the American Revolution. If you can find an ancestor at ancestry.com and you are a woman and you can get in that, you want to talk about wielding power, look up the Daughters. There are so many local civic clubs that aren't necessarily political, but they're about giving back to the community. I have this buddy to run for office. He ran for office and got kicked out. And now he wants to run back for office again. He's like, I don't know how I can ingratiate myself with the community. He's kind of an egghead, nerd, typical libertarian type. I'm like, join the Knights of Columbus. He's a Catholic, I'm like, go join the Knights of Columbus. And he's like, oh, so I can stand outside doing bell ringing. I'm like, yeah, exactly. So that you can stand outside seeing everybody who walks into the high V that day. Everybody's going to see you. And then they're all going to see you standing there waving Santa hat. You're going to introduce them to the kids. You're doing something good for the community. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Thank you, everyone.